So I think there's never been a time when there's been a more acute requirement to comply with regulations. I think the regulators have really raised the bar on how aggressive and invasive they've been stringent around people's surveillance. As ever, I think the requirements are driven by enforcement actions, and we've seen a few in the sector, particularly recently. We've seen the WhatsApp scandals around record keeping, and there are certainly a number of our clients that are struggling with that particular challenge. We've seen areas of requirement for voice communication in particular, where it was a nice to have or best efforts previously, and now we've seen that as being much more a regulatory requirement. From a communications monitoring perspective, obviously there was a number of channels that were not used previously, and as everyone was forced to work from home, then that multiplied significantly. And channel coverage of WebEx, Zoom, Teams, Slack, many others besides, meant that compliance was much more difficult to cover all of those channels. Where you have channels of communication that aren't covered, then you're going to run some risk. So I think regulation's changing and the regulator focus is evolving all the time. I think you need only look in the virtual asset and crypto space in particular, where there's some new requirements where the regulations are only just being written right now. I think if you were to ask global heads of surveillance if they've got all of their risks covered to their satisfaction, I think few would commit to saying yes unequivocally. If you break the monitoring down, it's really into three elements, and that will be data, engine, and people, accompanied with an understanding of what risks you've got to assess. But I think each of those disciplines needs to be carefully considered if you want to optimize your outcomes. So all the technology which we deploy is built in-house, so we don't place any reliance on anybody else. Consequently, we're taking responsibility when we're helping our clients and firms to comply effectively. There's a couple of areas. Clearly, we're an archiving solution and a communications monitoring solution, and we're enhancing the ability for our firms to comply with that effectively. And we've also developed a WhatsApp application which covers those pesky communications which were being focused on by the SEC in particular, and a lot of our clients are finding difficult to manage and cover in record keeping and surveillance terms. Great question. We've been in business about 24 years now, always in the cloud. So I think we sort of front run some of that technology challenge and got ahead of the game. 1,500 employees now globally, and we service a huge community of clients. Having the benefit of those 23,000 clients behind us means that we can provide a service which can be leveraged, and the experience can be leveraged to deliver on our promises. We've got a couple of other elements, including GRIP, which is our Global Regulatory Intelligence Practice, which is a publication and digital publication which covers all compliance elements and is a key development, and I think is a really good accessible resource for any compliance officer. And finally, I'd love to mention the fact that we're going to release a report which is being published tomorrow, which is really a survey which covers all of the compliance communications issues of the day. Really interesting event, useful people. I still think people are basking in the fact that we're having face-to-face events after so long at home. It's great to see some familiar faces, and I think some interesting ground's been covered and some good contacts have been made.